Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Monavie halftime show. Again, BCS National Championship, #1 Auburn versus #2 Oregon. Again, flown in all the way from Levon, Texas. We have Jason Bunning, famous legendary defensive end down in Texas. Jason, just some things that I've noted here during the course of the game. Turnovers. They've definitely killed both teams' offense and defense. While Cam Newton has struggled in some areas, he's been better than others. How do you feel about the matchup between Auburn and Oregon at this point where we are?
Well, right now, as I said earlier, I thought it was going to be a defensive struggle. Both the defensives have been playing just lights out football right now. Besides the one huge offensive play for Oregon, that's really been the only offensive play that's have manifested for them in the first half. I see these two offenses getting a little more comfortable here at the end of the second half. So maybe in the second half of the football game, we'll see a couple more touchdowns. But again, I think Auburn's going to go ahead and take this one.
Again, Auburn being a huge SEC team, they always look for the bigger guys. Like I said before earlier in the program, we look for the large Auburn jerseys. We look for the small, speedy, fast Oregon guys. I think that matchup has started to maybe take heat at this point. You start seeing some of these guys get cramps. Some of them get wounded. I mean, again, we're in Glendale, Arizona. Oregon may be a little bit more accustomed to playing in this weather versus Auburn transitioning into the colder weather towards the later part of the season. So, again, we'll see how Cam matches up. Now, one thing I do want to mention earlier is, and we talked about this, is the fact that some of the hype about Cam Newton and the off-field discretions that he got involved in. Again, most of the polls we got from emails earlier said that should he be allowed to play in this bowl game with the things that have happened with him off the field, although Chiswick said that he's eligible to play at the University of Auburn. How do you feel maybe as a player and maybe not being wrapped up in some of the off-field advantages that maybe he got involved in? How do you feel now sitting here tonight maybe looking at this football game? Should he or should he not have been allowed to play with the investigation?
Well, I mean, right now the investigation's still underway, so there really hasn't been any outcome. Like with the Reggie Bush situation where USC had to forfeit bowl games as well as wins the Heisman Trophy, the BCS title that they won back in 2004. I mean, those things are going to come back huge if Cam Newton is found guilty for player misconduct, even though it was on the part of his father. Now, Reggie Bush had the same exact incident where it was his family that got involved with the boosters rather than him himself.
As a player.
Correct. So, I mean, this is all going to pan out over the next couple months. The NCAA is going to continue to investigate, and they're going to come out. But right now, I mean, you can't take it away from the kid. The kid's playing lights-out football. I mean, 28 touchdowns passing, 20 rushing touchdowns. I mean, those are things that you can't take away from this guy. He's still going to be a first-round draft pick. He's still going to go into the NFL, even though, no matter which way this pans out, any team in the NFL right now will be lucky to have him.
Right, and I agree. And honestly, Jason, I think that most of the people out there will agree with those same things, that Cam Newton does deserve to play in the NFL, even though the off-field disadvantages maybe foreshadowed some of the things that he had happen on the field. My problem with the whole thing, Jason, is it came late in the season after the wins started to stack up. If this was an inquiry about something about his misconduct off the field, why wasn't it brought up prior to Game 4 or 5? Why wasn't it brought up until Game 7 or 8 when things start to come to light now?
Right, and that's a good point. I mean, this right here looks to me like somebody's, seeing the success that this guy's having, that this ball club is having, and they could have brought this up way before this season even started. However, they didn't. They waited until he started having some success, and this ball club started to take off, and then they try to sabotage him. Now, I don't necessarily agree with how this all came about, but regardless of the fact, there was some misconduct that happened, whether it was him or his father, and that's what's going to pan out over the next couple months.
Sure. Now let's take a look back at what's transpired throughout this year. We know that UNC has been in trouble with 7 or more players with player misconduct off the field. We know the issues with Reggie Bush and the USC and taking the wins away, which arguably forced their coach to go to Seattle and venture into that NFL category. If we look at things like we even had an incident with Virginia Tech down at their bowl game where Frank Beamer sent 7 of his players home for missing their curfew. Are these the kind of situations that the coaches need to step these players aside and say, hey, if you act out of line, this is where we're going to take this to? Or should we just let them go about and do what they need to do?
No, I agree that the coaches need to really step up and set an example. I mean, to me, honestly, this all starts at the home. If you're not going to follow curfew and things like that, this is stuff that has happened in the past,
Sure.
you know, along with your parents and everything else.
Sure.
But these coaches right now, they're in the parental authoritative figure for these players right now, and they really need to sit their ball clubs down and go ahead and let them know, hey, these are the consequences that are going to happen if you don't follow the rules. Now, aside from all this, you know, we have a great ball game coming up. You know, we have a huge second half. It's 16-11 right now. The way Auburn's playing, they get the ball back, obviously. They had a huge drive there at the end. Obviously didn't manifest into anything. But, you know, give them another minute or two on the clock. I think they really could have put something together.
All right, Jason, so as we roll into this second half of football, we're on the Oregon side, we're on the Auburn side. As Oregon transpires through this football game, do you change anything with your defense, or do you run the normal plays? And if so, if you're Auburn, do you adapt your offense to maybe some different formations to try to mix things up for this defensive team of Oregon?
Well, the way that I see it is Oregon, obviously, they're playing great defense right now. I mean, they got an interception off of Cam, you know, and those are few and far between, you know, this whole year.
Sure.
So that's an accomplishment in itself. What I should see from Oregon is they get some faster players on the field and start blitzing this guy a lot more. That way, you know, you take away the triple option, you take away all these plays that have been huge for Auburn all year. On the other side of that, you need Auburn to step up, pursue the football. Pursue the football, get to the guy that has the ball. That's the key to beating this Oregon offense, is getting to the football, pursue, don't let them get past you. Over pursuit by the defensive ends and the linebackers today is what's killed them in the first half.
I couldn't agree more, Jason. I think that if these secondaries step up and start to look at some of these play calls that have been made, they'll find these certain guys that are getting beat deep that should not be getting beat deep, and maybe change your coverage up a little bit in the secondary. Not necessarily bringing 4 or 3 guys in the 4-3 or the 3-4. What I would do is maybe play some of these players deep back and force Auburn or Oregon in this situation to run the ball up closer, maybe suck the secondary down and make some things change and happen up during the second half. Hey, folks, we got a live show for you. Ready? Welcome back to the Montague Halftime Report. We'll be back with you into the game for post-game. Have a good night. Again, security, this has been the same guy all night.